Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this session of week 3 for Electronic Village of Online 2023. The series of sessions is called Immersive Learning Experiences in the Metaverse, and today is dedicated to OpenSim, Kitely. Our moderators today are Barbara McQueen, Doris Molero, Jennifer Hamilton, and myself, Helena Galani. And I'm going to pass the floor to Barbara, who will begin her presentation. Barbara,
okay,
over
and
to
then
you.
for anybody who arrives late, I put on a page in Canvas everything that I'll be covering so they can join in mentally at any point. Okay, so to start with, I put off deciding what I was going to present today until I had seen the other presentations. And when I watched those presentations, several questions came up, important questions for us as educators to be asking ourselves. So I thought I'd organize what I show you today in response to those questions. It's organized so that we follow 5 questions that I've identified as major questions. The first question is, what does virtual learning offer that other educational venues don't offer? And I personally will give a little quick list, and then I suggest that I put in the discussion pages the 5 questions that I'm naming, and if you have more ideas, that you put those as discussion comments, because I'm just beginning the discussion. So what I see as what these venues have to offer is that you have deeper immersion for the students, because the virtual world pulls them in like that. For example, if students study about a fire and the vocabulary and the concepts, that's not nearly as engaging as actually putting out a fire in a virtual world where they have to use the vocabulary and concepts. And so one of the things I've built is a game that uses the ideas that if gas and a flame are in the same place, that's worse than just a flame, because there could, or not gas, but smoke and a flame, because it could lead to an explosion. And then you're going to have 3 times as much flames. And that's all built into the game. The second value to using virtual worlds is to improve other business and social skills that students will need now and in the future, like collaborating with others, collaborating across cultures, a general deeper sensitivity to other cultures, and increased ability to adapt to technology, because as we've seen during this series of sessions, there's a lot of technology out there, and you might want to use multiple ones, that every time you use one, you become better, easier to adapt to new ones. And those are skills our students need for the future. They need to be able to work with students in other countries without disgruntling them by a intercultural faux pas. And they need to be able to use all kinds of new technology. It's also, I think, it lends itself to a lot of asynchronous learning situations as well as synchronous. And it's fun. And the students can help you shape their learning. Now, for the next part of this, I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to go to my Edutopia one and look at some things. So if Helena will make sure I can share the screen that says host has disabled that.
Yes, now it is possible. You can click again, Barbara, sorry.
Okay, so here I am and several others of you, and we're at the landing point that is by default whenever you go to Edutopia 1. And this is the default because when you first come into any virtual world, I don't know if you know how to walk and talk and do the basics. So this is a boot camp for you to learn the basics or refresh yourself on them if you need to. And what we have here is a slideshow that walks you through some of the things, and also an obstacle course in the background over here for you to test out your skill at walking and talking. Well, not so much the talking, but walking without falling off a height. The second question then that I'm addressing is what ESL objectives can be met when we use virtual learning? Rosemary raised this in one of the sessions because she was saying, you know, it's exciting, but how do I meet the objectives that I'm supposed to meet as an ESL teacher? So everything I show you today is answering that question. And so I've come up with just a dozen objectives that are typical for ESL teachers. And I'll show you how you can easily meet those in virtual world teaching. So the first objective I thought of was, in the beginning, you need to have students be able to elicit and offer basic introductions. Very beginning of any course. Hi, how are you? My name is. So we would land here, and while I'm waiting for everybody to land, we would be working on that objective. Before they come in, they will have been for pre-coursework or homework, they will have looked at useful phrases for those introductions. Then they can come over here and work through these and demonstrate that they can do these things. That will take a whole lesson. And it meets that objective of basic introductions. Now, I have this particular page showing on the screen because one of the things I need everyone to do is friend at least the presenters of this conference, but if actually would be good to friend everybody you meet while you're in the virtual worlds or in Kitely, because when you friend people, then they can give you things, and I want to give you things. In fact, a homework assignment for you is to come into this world, Edutopia 1, and walk around and look at all the options you have here for teaching tools, games and slideshows and buildings. And I want you to, in the discussion question, tell me 3 of the things that you could use right now that you think would be great for your teaching. And if you do that homework, I will give you those things you name, but I can't give them to you if you haven't friended me. So it's easy to friend someone, and the slide shows you how. You just have to right-click on an avatar, then click Add as Friend, OK. Pretty simple. Now, a second objective for any English ESL teaching class might be teaching people to navigate in English. Like, even if they're just going to be a tourist, they need to know how to get around. Turn left, turn right. It's easy. You can't miss it. All of those things that we say when we're trying to give directions, those can be met here in the virtual world. with map activities, and I'm going to show you a direction giving activity. So I put out these teleport stations, and when I sit on it, it'll give me a choice of places to go. And let's see, I just tried to add this one, so I don't know 100% that it's going to work. Nope, it doesn't seem to be working. Am I sitting on it? It looks like it. Oh, well, doesn't matter. I'll have to play with those some more. Some of them work and some of them stop working. And you always have to, test and make sure there aren't glitches. Okay, so I can easily get to that spot because I know where everything is. I have a road that leads around my sim. And when I get this far on the road, I come down to the direction giving part. And one of the activities I do is this. Students want to build a house that looks like this. And what they start with are pieces that look like this. And so there are many useful phrases that they might want to use while getting their partner to build this structure into something looking like this. I've had students do this activity, and afterwards I came and look at the house and they go, oh no, it looks like it was in an earthquake. But meanwhile, they've met the objective of giving directions and asking for clarifications. A very basic skill in any ESL platform. Well, certainly at the lower levels. Okay, a third objective would be to engage in extended small talk, and that can be done with having them attend parties where they need to chat with each other's, and you can prepare for those by having them do perhaps some board games which focus on what works for small talk and what doesn't work. And as we continue down the road, we'll get to a section where we have games for small talk. It should be right around the corner here. And these games will have the students physically move around on a board with their avatars. So it's easy to keep track of who was where. And unlike a board game in a regular classroom, where it's difficult for all the students to see the board, they can easily see it from many angles while they're in the virtual world. Where is that small talk room? I have a feeling it's over in the vocabulary section, which we'll get to in a little bit. So I'll just point it out when we get there. A third objective would be, the fourth one would be to politely express agreement and disagreement. And for this, I have many restaurants and hotels. More of them are on Edutopia too. And for me to transfer us there now would take too much time. So I put pictures on the Canvas page where you can see some of them. And I encourage you to go to Edutopia too and have a look. The fifth objective would be to contrast and compare objects. And we just passed one big activity that I do with them that uses all the vocabulary for contrasting and comparing, as well as all the vocabulary about houses and preferences and where one wants to live. And so you see right here, I have a series of houses, including a tree house and a boathouse. There's also a ranch house and a fairy tale type home, and the students have to go with a partner into the various homes, discuss their merits, and then choose the one that they would like to live in or own. So again, we're meeting several objectives for the ESL teacher: describing, comparing, voicing opinions. A fifth objective, no, that was fifth. A sixth objective would be to understand when and how to use the 12 tenses of English. And that is also right down this road. And there's also games in another section, which I'll point out later as we continue to circle around. So as we go down this road, I happen to have my head in the sign. Let's keep away from the sign. There we go. And I go down here, and here's a grammar game about subject-verb agreement, where they can't move a checker piece unless they use the correct verb tense in a sentence. So if they want to move John, they have to say, find something that goes with that in a black piece, like if they can find goes or visit. If they choose visit, they don't get to move because John visit is not correct grammar. If they choose John goes to school every day, they can move to the piece that they've selected. And there are many games like that here that are among the objects you could select for the homework assignment as an object you would want. If I go a little further, you can see, for example, this timeline game. This timeline is where they have to flip the cards over and they'll show an invention, maybe the telephone, and they have to decide where in time it happened. Did it happen before other cards that have been flipped or after? And eventually they'll have all the cards laid out, hopefully in the right sequence. Of course, there is for the teacher a cheat sheet that shows where they should be in time. Because we're not history teachers, they're English teachers, right? Okay. We have a tic-tac-toe game, which reviews this particular one. There are several in this display, but this one shows pronouns, some of the tougher pronouns like nobody, or nouns that may confuse people when they're trying to do subject verb agreement, like politics is or are. Politics, even though it has an S, needs the verb is to go with it. It's just one of the rules, and I have a list of rules that the students would study before they attempt to play this tic-tac-toe game. You can see I'm passing by lots of things, which is intentional because otherwise we'd be here forever. As I keep going around the sim, I pass an amusement park where all the rides work. That's not particularly for our lesson, but it's to make this an enjoyable spot for students. Okay, this is we had left off on the grammar tenses. Another objective would be to have them present a serious issue. And they can do that in a couple of ways. One, I could take them to a television studio, which is on the other side of this sim, and they can make a news broadcast about things that are happening with them here in virtual worlds or in the real world. And they have to divvy up the tasks. That's an objective, being able to make a task list. They have to be able to present the issue succinctly. You don't want a news report that goes on for hours when it's only you have a half an hour slot. There are also several boards around here that have the basics on some important issues presented in them. And so the students can stand on either side of the board and be able to have a good discussion. So for example, after they might play Battleship, which is again an agreement game, we have something related to battleships, war. And on this side, we talk about why we go to war. So these are reasons that are good for having a war for. And on the other side are ideas about why we shouldn't have wars. And so if the students are at a loss, here are some things that can get them started on having a serious discussion. Another issue or objective would be understanding and pointing out logic errors. That is way on the other side of this, but I have a logic fallacies game, and I have setups for trials, getting them ready to understand American justice system, for example. And it includes some pretty silly cases that they have to reach decisions on, and then they see what the actual court decided. And eventually I set up a murder scenario for them in Edutopia 2, and they get the details of the crime in a PowerPoint, and then we go to a courtroom and they have to, on one day, plan their strategy. Who is going to be the lawyer? Who is going to be which particular witness that they will be interviewing, and they have to come up with their list of questions. And you know, as we're going down this list I've made of objectives that can easily be met by virtual teaching environments, you can see that the skills that are being taught are more sophisticated. So we started out with just meeting and greeting, and now here they are planning a trial. Since we're going past here, I'm going to note this temple to the side. I have 3 learning temples around the sim. One has all kinds of slideshows about different grammar issues so that students can practice that on their own if they need refreshers. This particular temple is for idioms, and it looks a bit cluttered, but it has slideshows on many different idioms by category. So there's eye idioms and nose idioms and animal idioms and nature idioms, etc. And one of the activities I have the students do, which reinforces several objectives, is they work as a team and pick an idiom they like, and then they build with basic building shapes something that illustrates that idiom. So for example, if we look here at this green horse, what do you think that would be? That's not a very simple one to build, but it's a horse of a different color. And the one right in front of me, men are from Mars and women are from Venus, etc. So again, it's a fun place for students to just explore on their own, which is the purpose of the temples, but you could also conduct lessons here. Okay. We're going to round the corner and very shortly around the 3rd corner. Here we have a bunch of map-related exercise. And if I go up in the air, you can see in the distance there, a super big Monopoly game, avatar size. So you move around the Monopoly game, and there is a jail that you go to, and you have to get a card that gets you out of jail for free by answering a grammar question. So this is grammar Monopoly. Okay, and then we're just going to start heading back to our starting point by coming down here. You see the third temple on my right. That temple is full of exercises that help students understand the different conditionals and use them appropriately. For example, there's a tower in here of blocks that you can either have them build or take down. And it's very easy for the tower to tumble. To be able to move a block, kind of stuck there, you have to use a conditional correctly in a sentence. No, I'm still inside the race. There's an invisible fence here for the race course so that people who are driving race cars don't run into other people with their race cars. Okay, so that game I just described is on the other side of this pillar. And you can see a tower that's been started, and students have to build blocks, but that tower is very easy to tumble. So, and when it tumbles, it really tumbles all over the place. I wanted to get a close-up on one of the blocks so you can see the writing on it. Well, it may be hard to do because of the writing right now. Oh, where am I? I'm probably in front of. Oh, okay, here you can see some. So they'll have to make a conditional sentence that uses the word handsome. If they do that correctly, they get to try to put the block on the temple. Whenever I teach in virtual worlds, I always have display boards that review the grammar that's necessary, and it's also given to the students beforehand. So there are a lot of fun things you can explore here. That yellow board over there has a honeybee pony, and the students have to find, by drawing a card, they get half of a Murphy's Law situation, that anything that could go wrong will go wrong, and they have to find the match and place one of those markers on it. So while they're playing a game, they are very definitely meeting a learning objective. Okay. Now you can see up in the air here that I put signs so that in addition to the teleport system, you can find things easily. There's a part for working on the objective of students improving their sentences by being able to make longer sentences. And I've created a grammar rummy game where they score points by adding words to sentences students already created. Some of the other things up in the air, let's take a look at the different titles. We have conversation games. That's where I would find that small talk game. We have vocabulary building games, business English, logic games. So there are lots of different useful activities that you might want to choose for me to give to you. Okay, moving down our list. Students need to be, another objective, a higher level objective, was to have students negotiate and compromise which can be done with many of these activities I've already showed you, but also by having them do even higher level activities, like going to a medieval world that's part of Edutopia 2, and there's a power struggle game they have to play there, where they have to make secret pacts and find secret tunnels. And it's tricky because people can say they're your pledge to you, but they may be lying. As I go up in the air, I can see some of the other things that I want to point out to you. The 10th of my dozen objectives was to determine the tasks that need to be accomplished to solve a serious problem. And for example, being stranded on a deserted island. And so if I come over here, just on the other side of these trees, I have a PowerPoint that tests their surviving skills. Like if you're stranded and you don't have any water, what should you do? Drink your urine? Is that good or not? And the choices are kind of alarming choices, and only one is correct. And the students show what answer they choose by going to the letter of the choice, A, B, or C. After they do this, they realize that their survival skills probably need some work. And then I strand them on a desert island on Edutopia 2, and they have to make a list of what are the best things to do in order to survive there, and then delegate people to do those things. And after a short while, we look at the two teams and see who has the best chance of survival, depending on how well they tackled the task. Also, for the 11th of the 12 curriculum's objectives would be for students to understand and illustrate cultural differences. I have a culture board game down here, and also lots of graphs and charts that show things such as how different our cultures are. For example, how we eat, when we eat, what we eat with. Do we eat pork? Do we use chopsticks? Do we eat at 11 o'clock at night? How do we smile? What does that smile mean to other people? Is it like baring your teeth so you don't want to do it, or is it a good thing? How important is the boss? Is he like a god, or is he like an equal? How important are you? Are you the most important thing in your life, or is the community more important? So those are addressed in some of the games that are here. Yeah, and I'm flying right past. And then the 12th objective would be to continually improve their vocabulary, which is why I was flying over in this direction. You can see a couple of interesting games here. If you want to continually improve vocabulary, students have to know how to use affixes, which are prefixes and suffixes. So I put them on these dominoes, and the students play in teams against each other to place the dominoes. They cannot put dominoes next to each other that wouldn't make real words in English. So they have to understand the meaning of affixes and whether they are prefixes or suffix. And as always, there's explanations of the game around it, and the rules, and illustration of important grammar issues. This blue chart, which is still resin. Also, in the goal of trying to increase their vocabulary, you need to teach them how to define things. and I have a game that shows the many ways you can make good definitions. And so on the chart, they have different ways to define the objects that are listed across the top. Possible ways are on the bottom, and the words are down here. The yellow team will try to place all of their blocks on the correct column and way of definition until they've got rid of them all. Now, all of these things are that I've mentioned to you and much more are illustrated on a machinima that I made, and there's a link to it on the Canvas web page. And the video shows these students actually doing these activities. The idea of machinimas is the last thing I want to mention as a possible activity that meets many objectives. And for that, I just want to show you the corner of this sim that is dedicated to machinima making. You can see up here the towers in the distance. Those towers are a series of sets that students might use in making a machinima. They can make their own set, or they can use one of these. And the sets are very interesting. This looks very simple, but when you actually go inside one of these sets, you are literally in a room and it feels like it's very 3D. So for example, it's not going to res for a while, so I don't know if this one. Okay, this one is actually kind of res. So this is a dark room. I'm inside it and I can see all over the place. I have a 360-degree view of the room for the students to act in. So these towers are available as a tool. And there's also an example of set used for an Alice in Wonderland film that the students made. And there's a plot building game, that multicolored game over in the distance. Just zoom right through this. And this will be our last stop.
Barb, how do you have that effect of 360 in those boxes?
I got a picture that was 360, and then I put it on the inside of a box. Then I made the inside was not transparent, but the outside is transparent. So a filmmaker can stand anywhere around the box and film what's going on inside it, but the people inside can't see the filmmaker. And sometimes it works better if you put a sphere actually inside the box so that you don't get corners. So you have to collect some 360 pictures first, but you can easily find them. I found all of mine by Googling images, 360 pictures. Okay, so one of the things that helps students when they are going to create a machinima is they have to have a plot. And so if they play this game, by the time they move around here, they will have all the elements they need: character, setting, time, props, etc., which is a very useful tool. Okay, I'm going to turn it back to you, Helena. I'm going to at least stop sharing my screen. Stop sharing. And the other questions that are going to be for you to answer in the discussion part of the Canvas are: which forms of online learning offer the most benefits? I've reviewed the different types. Why aren't more teachers buying into using virtual communities? And I list possible reasons that I see. and how can we address or solve those problems? And I posed what I think are some possible solutions. So lots of stuff for you to look at in Canvas. Okay, back to you, Helena.
Barbara, how very inspiring. Every time I watch you. Thank you so much. And thanks for defining the objectives and for addressing a lot of issues. And yes, please feel free to upload any material you have on our Canvas for the rest of the participants to read and follow through. I suppose it's my turn now to give you a few more details about my experience. You've seen throughout the years we've been working together. You have seen a lot of extracts of the work I've been doing with my students on Kitely, ELT Treasure Island. And so I would not like to repeat the same information. I would like to show you something different today. But before we do so, may I develop a little bit around what Barbara said on the idea of the metaverse. What is the metaverse? A lot of people believe that it is, as we said, the brand associated with Mark Zuckerberg. But as Wikipedia nicely defines it, it's a hypothetical iteration of the internet as a single universal immersive virtual world, facilitated by the use of virtual reality and augmented reality headsets. Colloquially, a metaverse is a network of 3D virtual worlds focused on social connection. And if I may share this briefly, I don't want it to be a PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to log in a minute in World. I hope you can see this. So this is the extended reality in my eyes. Whatever I've been using with my students so far, we try to blend things a little bit. It can be a lot of different, the metaverse, immersive metaverse for us is using a lot of different online platforms to extend their experience a little bit and to augment it, not only through virtual reality and virtual world platforms. The taxi to my experience. Thank you, Doris. Okay. But also it includes a lot of artificial intelligence applications online. I consider those as part of the metaverse too. As I also briefly presented in the first session on the 12th of January, these are possible objectives for an educator, a language educator to set for their students in world. You can easily teach them how to be a consistent 21st century citizenship. You can focus on sustainability and sustainable development goals. You can teach them self-management skills, compassion, autonomy, together with collaboration, cultural identity and awareness, as Barbara nicely put it through her tasks on Edutopia. I'm going to show you a few more activities on ELT Treasure Island connected with fiction and literature. And today I will focus mainly on Alice in Wonderland and what we have created so far. Learning to learn and developing strategies, class research, there's a lot. To me, this is the ideal contemporary classroom. And I would much rather have lessons in an environment like this. And I think it takes a little bit to teach students to get used to the ins and outs of the technology, but eventually they love it and they give it preference over Zoom, for example. I found this, and it's interesting to read in more detail at your own time. It's on The Digital Speaker by Dr. Mark van Rigenman. He says that the characteristics of the metaverse are around interoperability. And of course, this is under discussion and there may be room for improvement. But I see a lot of these characteristics applying to the affordances that Open Simulator or Second Life, in that matter, can offer. You can take out the value created in one platform into another one. You can take assets from one world to another, and especially Kitely is very practical when it comes to this. You can save all your data or your assets on a stick. Decentralization, you own, and there are blockchain technologies that return you back to your assets. There is persistency. There's your material, your creations are always on. There's an on-off feature. You can turn it off, or you can even remove it when you want. Spatiality. Well, this probably needs a little bit more development, but we are working on that, and I'm glad that Barbara also brought it up. It would be nice to have like an archive and find out assets, searchable assets. Well, it is community driven, and we are the living proof of it. There is sociability and social experience in this world, in this virtual world. And also there is self-sovereignty. There is individual control over our data, our information, our assets. And it is portable, protected, attributable. There are affordances that can ensure that. These are some approaches. I wouldn't like to focus on this. It's theoretical. Some approaches associated to the use of Open Simulator and the methods you can use for your teaching. I also, as I said earlier, for the moment, at this time, I focus on developing learner sustainability competencies. I find it important in our century to help our students develop knowledge, skills, attributes, values that enable effective embodied action in the world. And the aim, the goal is transformative learning, not only for adults. I believe that even younger students can have this kind of target in their life as students. It is this transformative learning, according to Mezirow, has been associated with scholars as an effective andragogical approach for sustainable development. Learning should not only be about acquiring competencies, but also about becoming critically self-aware of tacit experiences and assessing its relevance to interpret the world. My presentation at this year's Open Simulator Community Conference 2022 focused on TESOL immersion for the 2030 agenda. This is how I see it. I came across this. You can see the source underneath, WIEC and WIEC. It's about how the learner can be empowered with language to talk confidently about such issues. Some resources we're going to look at now, and I'm going to start with Alice in Wonderland. I'm going to offer you teleport to this skybox. The passage down the rabbit hole is very interesting. The talk-through entrance at the museum, Alice's Museum of Moving Characters. The post box where you can leave your message in a note card. So let's all have a look at that. And is it closed, Carol? Okay, yes, it is, because I've got to add you. Although I opened those restrictions before the session, I'll have to add you as a member of our group. But first of all, let me teleport the rest of you. I'll offer teleport to Barbara, who is a member of ELT Learner Factor, Eleanor, Jazz, Destiny, Payo, you're a member, so you can join me. Or yes, I've got Payo, she has landed. Anybody else?
Don't worry about me.
Okay.
I'll just watch, don't worry.
Well, I'll add you to the group. I'll try adding you to the group. Anyway, it's going to take a while.
No, don't stop. Don't worry at all.
Okay, all right. Well, let me reveal that I'm going to give you a note card. Actually, let me give you the note card for those who cannot log on. And at your own time, I'd like you to come here and collect those items, those artifacts. Sorry, excuse me. So Carol, no, Carol's not here. Why not?
Don't worry.
I'd like to give
Carry
you
on.
the I'd like to give you the note card, really.
Yeah, I'm not able to get there either, but
You're not. Okay. So Barbara, let me at least I'd like to give you the note card, and then we can sort it out and see how it works. And Jazz, we are friends, so here's the note card.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody? Junji, are we friends on OpenSim? Have you logged in? No, we don't know yet. And Eleanor, we are friends, but are you logged in at the moment? Okay, I'm going to pass the note card over to you. All right.
Just copy it. Just copy the note card into Canvas.
Yes, I will. I will copy it on Canvas, and it is also available on the sandbox in a big yellow box. Well, since Payo is here, you might want to try going down the rabbit hole, Payo, with your avatar. You know where
She's leaving.
you know where it is.
She's just leaving. She's teaching.
Oh, right, I see. Okay, then I'm going to show you around. Once you arrive here, this is going to pop up, and automatically you'll be teleported to this room where Alice landed. You can imagine what you can do in here in terms of linguistic aims or lesson aims. You'll find the drink me bottle if you've read the story or watched the film, the eat me box. You'll find the key and the doors all around. So I don't know if you feel claustrophobic in here, it might be a bit of an issue, but you'll have difficulty getting out through this little door. And it's not possible to drink out of this bottle. So I'd like you to look around when you get in here and try and find a way of leaving this restricted space in order to land on the museum platform. I'm not going to show you where your escape solution is, but I've used a different method for that. And let me activate my sounds here. On the top right, you can see your sounds, and you can always put up the media or the music sounds. For the moment, that's okay for me. And on the right, this is the post box I was telling you about. And I see I've got 5 unread messages from my students who came in here. We had a lesson today, who came in here and dropped a message for me. I'm going to read it at my own time and enjoy the message they have to say, to give me. On the other side, there's a chatbot. Well, and but just by clicking on it, you can start conversations with it. You can talk about anything you like. It is supposed to be a wise owl, but so far, I don't think it gives such wise answers. You will see. And then on entering, all right, I'd like you to check out what this oral message is about. And then when you come here together in groups, hopefully you can play the game with the expressions taken from the book. So that gets students to talk and to expand on whatever they see just above this cube. Carol, thank you so much for teaching me. I remember the day when you did so, and some years ago.
Oh, wow.
The
That's a
random
long
word
time
giver.
Wow.
Not a
What
lot
a
of
fabulous
things.
experience for me, learning in this group and having Carol as head of my trainers in World. Here on this, what is it, painting board, you can find pictures from an AI chat online. You need to have, it's in World AI, that's the name. You need to have an account. So you need to use your Gmail for that. And you can actually have real discussions with the characters. It is so clever. You won't believe it. Okay, there's what's next here is a simple slide viewer. Again, I've shown you this. These images stand as stimuli for class discussion, to talk about the characters, to talk about the hidden messages behind them. Okay. Behind the characters, about the plot. And all right, here is another matching game, a solitaire. The students have to match the red phrases, the red verbs with the blue phrases. So sit the cake on the table is not appropriate. Try, no, I haven't found it yet. Well, sit by the riverside is more appropriate. Okay, so you can spend up to 1 minute. There's a time limit here. So you can find all sorts. Here is a video, media on a prim, as we call it. Okay, the next place I'd like to take you to is okay, you have seen the tea party area, so I'm not going to take you there. You've seen it several times. The Curator maze is nice. And all right, everything's up in the air. Okay, so the students have to go in here and answer some questions in the chat so that they are allowed to continue. Am I on the wrong side? Oh, every time I come, there's a surprise for me. And I have to fix things. Okay, here it is. Here's the question. Why did Alice eat a huge mushroom? And if you want to cheat, then the answer is somewhere here in the script. And the actual answer that the students should type in the chat is to change her size so that, well, actually the students will not be able to see the phrase, but to change her size, and the door will open. Okay, I know there are certain issues that sometimes occur with the scripts and the size of the prims, so I have to go back and edit every time. Sometimes I use different or similar topics associated with the particular piece of literature. So I may connect it with the idea of poverty, which is also a self-development goal. And that gives students the opportunity not only to learn about the story, but also about real life issues. Well, once they come in here, they're shocked, and you can imagine the reactions. And again, here is a random word giver that gives them some stimuli to discuss things. Another sustainability goal is to do with water. So I will choose barren. Okay. They'll find a lot of information about the usefulness of water, sanitation, health issues, and they can even watch a YouTube video on the impact of poverty and limited hygiene in certain areas. That makes them more sensitive to respond in the language. Okay, the point is not to actually watch it at the moment, so I'm going to stop it. Yes, this is like a dice with information about water, the need for cleanliness, how useful it is. Okay, Junji, I'm going to help you log in Kitely at another time, okay? Something else that is quite useful, especially for more advanced learners. Okay, 22. Oh, sorry. Clicked the wrong object. All right. One of my groups comes from this area. It's called Pella. It's in northern Greece, Macedonia, which is a prefecture in the north of Greece, actually northern Greece. And here, by clicking on this sign, they can be directed online and find information about this particular area. Or they can watch a documentary in the background. There's media on Prim. So do come here and look around. Feel free to explore. You can copy objects. A lot of this, except for the trees, for example, the trees are not copyable, but I don't think you'd be interested in the trees. You'd be interested in the material. Come here and take a copy of the board, for example. Right click, then select more and take a copy. And it will end up in your inventory. You can always search for it here under objects, the house of Dionysos in Pella, Greece. Yeah, it will feel as if you are given the opportunity to travel from the comfort of your own home. Yes, there are mosaics that you can find information about if you're interested in archaeology and history. Very interesting. And this is also associated with the Sustainability Development Goal for the protection of natural resources and cultural heritage. Well, Oscar Wilde's area is what we presented in the EVO session a couple of years ago for transmedia storytelling, if you remember. And it might be worth going there. But maybe I shouldn't, because Pio has got a very nice task for Sunday, and I wouldn't like to give away a lot of information, to be honest with you. But then again, I may take you to the garden. There isn't a task associated with education in the garden, or to the school, Oscar Wilde's school. All right. Well, it's a traditional school with the board about how to make a slideshow viewer in Kitely. It's a bit contradictory. You can imagine what kind of games you would have in here, what kind of tasks, the mentality on the blackboard, how common, how similar is it to the mentality that our educational system supports nowadays. And of course, there are a lot of games. So there's platform in the sky where everything has been boxed actually. And just by right clicking and opening, you can find all the board games that are used here with students. Amazing. And a lot of this is inspired, actually suggested or described or created, all these verbs actually, by students. Here, let's take this one, Billy's adjectives, for example. Okay, it's the other way around. Here it is. Okay, this is a hotspot board. They've got to put the right phrase in the gap just by clicking on the phrase and on the right part of the sentence where the phrase is missing. Oh, there's a lot in here. There is so much in here, really. Passive voice, structure games, vocabulary games. Okay, this one is quite big. Let's take the other one. Can delete it. You need a dice and a games piece, 2 games pieces, follow the directions. And there are different words in the form of slides in each box, and they've got to use the words to make sentences with. Interesting, they like it. They try to answer as many as possible in order to finish first. It's very competitive, can be inspiring. Well, I wouldn't like to tell you more, but maybe by using the card I gave you, you may have the opportunity. Yes, Barbara, I'll help you box them. We need some space, don't we? And there's a Razor script, so we can put everything in the Razor and open it anytime. They will all open at the same time. Well, do feel free to ask me any questions. And Junji and everybody else, I'm going to add you to the group so that you're able to go in world on ELT Treasure Island and take a copy of those artifacts and bring them back to the sandbox so that we build together, whichever of these you like. It is an amazing experience. There is no end to it because I think that it offers a lot to students. And the fact that it's been around, Kitely and OpenSim has been around for such a long time, makes it more developed than other online platforms. Would you like any suggestions, any help, any ideas? I can go back to the sandbox and show you where you can find some script and the note card also. So EduNation, Metaverse Sandbox. Okay, I'm back. And let's share my screen. Okay, Eleanor is here. Hi, Eleanor. Again, I'll use the teleporter. Here it is. And I'm going to choose Immersive Metaverse number 18. You click number 18 and then you also click the teleporter again and you will get there. Okay, here it is. It will reveal gradually, reveal itself. Okay, at the very end corner, I've got some scripts in here. The URL loader script, so you can click on it and take it. The slideshow viewer script with instructions how to build a slideshow. Here, how to res items, a reser script, and the random words giver. In this yellow box, you've got the note card, so let's make it copyable. Actually, it's not copyable at the moment. Let's go to the content and all permissions. Copy. Okay. So you can just come here, right click or take a copy. Right click, open, and copy the contents to the inventory. Okay. Well, I'm open to discussion here. Any help you need?
That was a wonderful tour.
Well, I showed you part of it. No time for everything.
I think we should have a discussion on the Canvas page for other teaching ideas that people perhaps want developed. They feel
Okay.
like they don't have time to develop, but they have a great idea for a game or
Yes.
activity.
Yes. Sure, that's a great idea, Barbara.
One thing I haven't come to terms with about OpenSim is I've got at least 3 Avis now. I've got one in OpenSim, one in Kitely, and one in Edmondo. Edmondo I probably won't be able to use for much longer because that was part of a project. So I've got 2 others. I don't like having different avatars, but one doesn't work. So it just infuriates me. Whereas when you go into Second Life, of course, one does everything, you go everywhere, you collect everything, you've got one inventory, it's no problem. In OpenSim, you collect stuff in Kitely, then you can't use it anywhere else. You collect stuff in OpenSim and you can't use it in Kitely. It just drives me insane.
That's changing.
That's what? Sorry?
That's changing. Now,
Is it?
for example, if you get things through the marketplace, you choose where you want it delivered to or stored. So you asked me once if I had some laundry baskets. And if you bought them while you were in Kitely, you could only use them in Kitely. But if you wanted to use them in a different OpenSim, you go to that OpenSim and buy it from there. Or I think there might be a drop down window that you can choose where you choose where you want to buy it.
Yeah, but you're still restricted, aren't you? That you still can only use it in one sim. You can't go around different worlds. Sorry, not one sim,
you can
one world.
You can hypergrid.
Yes, but you still can't use the stuff in other grids.
Well, for the OpenSim conference, community conference, last December, I used my Kitely sim with all my paraphernalia in my inventory, and it seemed to work. I think things are changing.
Well, I certainly have gone to like one of the craft worlds, which is a different, it's not inside Kitely, and been able to get objects there, copy objects and use them from my inventory in Kitely. So it's hit or miss.
It is. Kitely stuff definitely doesn't transfer out easily. You see everything is unavailable all the way down the list if you've got it in Kitely. But other stuff is. but then you still need, how many avatars have you got to have? Or you've got to log in one place and then do all the hops. It just, to me, it just drives me insane, which is why, of course, I don't very often come in, why I haven't used it for ages.
Yes.
It just
Definitely room for improvement.
Yes, there
yes, I
is.
think there is. I mean, the hypergrid itself was massive when that started. That was a massive improvement, but there's still the inventories and the avatars. I can't sort of just log into Kitely with my OpenSim avatar, for example. I've got to log into OpenSim and then hop and
I see.
yes, it's just,
And then
I
you
know that
probably lose
Kitely
half
has
of
a-
your outfit on the way,
it's quite
teleporting.
likely. Yes, that's happened before now.
I know that Kitely has a weekly meeting where they discuss what people like and don't like it. And it's with the creators. So if
Yeah.
enough people raise an objection, they might deal with it.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yes, Ilya Techner is his name, isn't it? Yeah. He's very open to an
Mhm.
exchange of ideas. I think the session takes place every Sunday, late at night for Europeans. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And
Absolutely brilliant, though.
Barbara,
Your
I'm going to
sim
go
is so
back to your
wonderful.
sim and start. I'm going to choose my artifact and come back on Sunday and build it on the sandbox. Well, thank you
Brilliant.
very much. I'm going to stop the recording for now.
Thank you. Thank you
And
very,
our
very
next
much.
session is again about Open Simulator, Kitely. And we're going to meet at the sandbox, the same time.
For hands-on learning.